Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Reads Podcast, the show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. And today I am here with Miss Brigid Kennedy. She is a debut young adult historical fantasy author, a violin teacher, and mother whose series of Irish myths and Incan legends is rooted in real family history spanning two continents and over 100 years. Her debut novel, Lost City of Ink and Gold, launched on St. Patrick's Day of this year with 75 five-star reviews at 100% rating on Amazon. And the series follows the Kennedy family, Irish treasure hunters whose real history includes a great-grandmother who married in Peru in 1910 and disappeared into the Amazon on his final expedition and never to return. As one of as one New York Times best-selling author said after reading her work, that's not fantasy, that's reclamation. The book The Lost City of Ink and Gold is available now wherever books are sold, and she is here today to share with us a little bit about her writing journey, as well as share a little bit more about the book, as well as just share some stories from it. So, Bridget, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today to come on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too, Noah. So excited.
So, take me to the beginning. Share with me a little bit about the idea of where the Lost City of Ink and Gold came from and what kind of got you started into writing.
So, 3 years ago, I was sound asleep, 2 a.m., and my great grandmother came to me. It was not some vision or a foggy dream. It was real. Her presence, her voice, and she just got right down to the point like how she always does. And she said, "Write the story." I sat up in bed straight away and I thought about what she just told me. And I thought about my great grandfather, Robert Patrick Kennedy, an Irish treasure hunter, and he sailed to Peru in search of the lost city of ink and gold. And these stories have been told around the dinner table at all the family functions. And so I knew fragments of this story, and I've seen pictures that, weren't properly labeled. And I knew that the story was slipping away generation by generation. And and I knew what she wanted me to do. She wanted me to write it. There was only one problem. I'm a violinist. I've never written a book in my life.
So, when you first started drafting this story and started writing, tell me a little bit about what your writing process was like. Did you do a lot of writing in kind of spurts? Did you decide to write everything down at one time? What was kind of your routine when it came to writing the book?
You know, when for that morning, I got up straight away and I made a pot of coffee and I started writing down everything that I knew about our family history, dates, names, places, and then started researching a little bit more and talking to the other family members, trying to pull more stories from our my great grandparents' lives and their lives. And it started kind of like a family tree project, a genealogy project. And then I hit a point where our story stops in our family. So the true story is that our my great grandfather on his last expedition he never returned, and so at that point the family kind of started crumbling apart. And my story picks up with the children. When they become old enough, they find dad's journal and there is his treasure map. And they're like, let's try to figure out some clues so we can close this chapter in the book and move on with our lives. And then when all the children go into the magical borders of the Amazon, this is where my story picks up. So I went from a genealogy, like just writing dates and stuff, into developing an actual story that went on. And I kind of just flowed wherever my imagination would take me. And it really did take me about 3 years to finish the first book. And then the second book took me about 2 months. And then the third book only took me 3 weeks. And what I learned about the writing process there was that outlines do matter. And I'm going to have to give a huge shout out to my history English teacher, because all she did that whole senior year was drill outlines, the more detailed outlines. And that's what we got graded on the whole year, is our outlines. And when I put all that foundation to use, a huge difference. So yeah, so I went from a writing as you go type of author to get the whole thing fully outlined, even to almost per sentence, an outline of the book. And that really helped shape the progression of everything.
What was the So when you were writing this book, I know that you used a lot of your family tree. Looked back into your family history. With it being a young adult historical fantasy and have some fiction, was there anything from your past that you were hesitant about putting in this book, or was there stuff that you still wanted to kind of keep private?
Yes, yes. So, kind of addressing a little bit of why it's a YA fantasy book. I am a big reader. I love fantasy books, and my daughter, she was, 13 at the time, and she was a huge fantasy reader. And I quickly learned that not all fantasy books and YA fantasy books were safe for a 13-year-old to read. And I really felt that there was a great need to have this epic world building, these huge character arcs, really engaging the reader without the graphic spice that is in so many of them. So I wanted a really nice story that a young reader could fall in love with, without the parents having to worry so much about the graphic nature of certain relations. And so that's why I did with the YA. And all of my characters, they're all siblings. So my oldest one is 25, but I decided to keep it rather clean. Now, my two main protagonists, and my main one, Kat, she's 24, and she has a romantic heart, and she's just waiting to fall in love. And she does meet some incredible men throughout her journey. And so I do have a love story that buds and blooms throughout it. It is very well earned, but I keep everything at a spice light rating for it. So, taking with my background, my true history, I just wanted to keep it very clean through the imagination. And but I do add a lot of trauma into the book. There are dangerous situations, life-threatening situations, bullying. There are real things that happen in the book. It's just I'm keeping the spice at a low simmer level.
When you released the book, what was the overall reception that you had gotten from fantasy lovers to this? What was your family's reaction when you released the book as well?
Well, the release date was not planned. I woke up on St. Patrick's Day this year, and I just rolled over, looked at my phone just to see what my messages and what I need to tackle that day. And it was from my publisher, and it was like, "Hi, your book is live now on Amazon." And I just jumped out of bed. I'm like, "What is this?" And it's so appropriate because my book is based on my heritage, which is Irish and the Ekin. And I just felt like the luck of the Irish was with me on my launch date this year. And so it was a surprise to all my friends and family that the book was launched. I thought it would be months away. So that was surprising. And then on the very first week that it launched, 75 five-star reviews, 100% five-star reviews. And I was just blown away and so touched that it had such a huge welcome into the world.
You know, so many people. Well, here's a good question that I have about publishing. Now, I know that a lot of authors have turned into self-publishing, but your publisher had actually contacted you. Um, what are
Actually,
the benefits?
no. Yeah, so it is a self-published book with Balboa. So I am an indie author. I don't have a literary agent as of right now, and I don't have a publishing house backing me. So all of this is all by myself, and getting it into print mode with Balboa Press. And so yeah, indie author here, trying to make it all on my own.
Do you feel like you have more creative control being a self-published author?
I do. So when I first finished the book, I was maybe two, three drafts of polishing in, and I tried the literary agent route, and I quickly found out that my book was like 60,000 words over what is the standard issue for a first release for a YA author. And so there was a lot of things that I had to learn, a big learning curve. And, it got rejected across the board. And so I felt like my story really needed to be out there. And so I just took the leap and self-published it. Um, and then every day I'm learning about marketing, I'm learning about social media. And so it's a huge mountain to climb, but one step at a time. Every single day I'm learning something new.
So I know that you had the opportunity to actually travel to Ireland, and what was it like to be able to travel there and send in the world of your own book?
Yes, yes. Well, as I was growing up, we traveled to Peru a lot because my mom is Peruvian. And so we went to Lima for almost all the summers, and to Cusco and Machu Picchu. So I knew a lot of my Peruvian heritage. But going to Ireland, going to Galway for the first time as an adult, and I was able to take, of course, my husband and my daughter there to walk the cobblestone streets that I knew my grandfather, my great grandfather walked down, to stand before our family castle, to go and walk on the burn, and to feel the cold Irish air off the Atlantic on the cliffs of Moher. It was a homecoming to step onto that soil, our my other half of my heritage soil. I really felt connected to it.
So why do you think stories that are rooted in real family history, why do they tend to resonate so deeply with readers?
Well, I think, in this time of age, everybody just wants to feel connected to something. Everybody wants to feel like they belong to something bigger than themselves. And with all of these ancestry.com and DNA, they just really want to figure out where they came from. And that's one of the main reasons I decided to write my family history, to listen and say yes to that calling from my grandmother, is because my daughter is now 16, and she's in a perfect age to really understand and appreciate where her roots come from. And in my story, and we can get into what the story is actually about as well. My story is our family history. We're treasure hunters. We are adventurers. And so if my daughter ever feels that urge to go on a quest, to go adventuring, she needs to know that that's her ancestors calling her.
So, tell me a little overview about the book itself. I know that it focuses on the Kennedy family as kind of what the characters that are in there. So, what can readers expect when they learn more about the Kennedy family?
So on the Irish side, my great grandfather, so we're the Kennedys, and our clan tradition is the Master of Blades. And so when my great grandfather left Ireland, he did it with his younger brother, John. They braved the open seas, they crossed the Atlantic, they got to Port Lima, and to go from Lima, Peru to the Peruvian Amazons, you have to cross through a little town called Arequipa. And that's where my great grandmother, Eudocia Rodriguez, her hacienda was. And so they ended up crossing through the hacienda. They met the Rodriguez family, and this was a really neat point of my research, talking to all of my family, trying to get stories of their love story and how it all happened. So an interesting fact is that the next day was a huge bullfighting match, and the Rodriguez family was very wealthy, and they had like box seats, front row seats to the bullfighting match. And my great grandfather, Robert, he was so excited at the match, he started jumping up and down. And then he leapt right over the railing onto the dirt of the arena and fought that bull. And all the crowd went wild, chanting, Gringo, Gringo, which means white guy. And they threw him a cape and a sword to fight the bull. And he masterly did it. And the bull swept through the cape, and my great grandfather turned to and gave a smile at my grandmother, and to see, show her like how strong and manly he is. But at that point, the bull turned his horns and impaled my great grandfather on the side and on his thigh, and hooked him and launched him into the air. Well, the medics came, and they saved his life, and my great grandmother stayed with him by his side, and became like his nurse and nursed him back to health over the next couple of weeks. And so he had these deadly wounds, and they couldn't go into the Amazon like they were planning until he was all healed up. So their love really developed over those weeks. But then his brother John went into the Amazon just to kind of see if the stuff on their treasure map was correct, and kind of meet the local tribes. And he met the local tribes, and he fell in love with one of the tribal ladies, and he decided to stay in the Amazon and marry one of the tribal chiefs, the daughters, and they ended up raising two daughters in the heart of the rainforest. So at this point, my great grandfather was kind of by himself on the expeditions, and on the last expedition, he never returned from the Amazon. And at this point in the story of my real life, my true family history, the family kind of crumbled away with this huge hole in the heart. And we don't know what happened to my grandfather. We don't know what he saw, what he experienced, what kept him from returning home to the family. So my story starts off with the kids. They want to put a closure to this, move on with their lives, try to find some clues on what happened to dad, so they can heal as a family. And so that is my journey. So that is the epic adventure that my book is. So when all of the kids decided to cross into the magical borders of the Amazons, they get imbued with the powers of the Incan gods. They're running from headhunters, cannibals, surviving temples of death. They are taken hostage by a tribe. All of this wonderful stuff, and they do end up finding what happened to their father. And this is where all the feelings come out. These are five siblings. And as siblings are, sometimes you love your siblings and sometimes you want to strangle your siblings. And I show that all in the book. And each one of those siblings had to face the reality that their dad has been gone for 15 years. And each one of them has a different memory of their father. And each one of them has a different experience of what happened when their father went away, what happened to them. So a lot of anger and a lot of confusion and assumptions went on when they were growing up. And when they come face to face to what the true history of what their father happened to them, they have to reconcile with what they assumed as their childhood trauma and what actually happened. And there's a moment of is is it worth being forgiven about? Is it worth of releasing these feelings that I've had because it was wrong as an assumption, and what actually happened was true. And so there's that big wrestle with the emotions, and all five of the siblings have a different journey of healing to go on. So when readers read my book, yes, they're going to find a great banter, a great family bond. They're going to find tragedy. They're going to find loss. They're going to find the characters getting into very, very dramatic peril, life-threatening situations, adventure. But they're also going to go on this huge feeling journey of healing towards the end of the book as well.
I know since your debut novel, you've actually wrote three books and a novella since then. What else do you have planned for the Kennedy family? What's next for them?
Yes, so my book Lost, The Lost City of Ink and Gold is out and available, and I already have the next books in line written. So the novella series is called Untold. And if you just read Lost, it is a fast-paced, lots of action adventure, lots of good all the feels in here, complete story. But some readers kind of like to get into the depths of the characters, the back nitty gritty stories. And that's where you could find in the novella series Untold. It is the untold stories between the lines in our book here. And so it's a companion series. You can read it side by side if you want, because I said in the novella series, read this before this chapter or this page. Or you could read this and then completely fall in love with it and want to know more about my main characters and their story. And so you could read it afterwards. And then in my book two, the Kennedys are still moving, and they're very well known as treasure hunters. And there is another true history fact here. That book deals with the lost, the forgotten treasure of Lima. And so the book is called Forgotten. And on their way back to Ireland, they get captured by pirates who were on their way to go find this lost treasure. And that's where this story happens. So it's a bit like on the high seas, pirate capture. The tropical island that they take it to is the Cocos Islands, the same one that Jurassic Park was based on. So that's your image of a tropical island there. It has mermaids, it has dark magic. So it's a wonderful piratey summer read in there. And then the third book, Stolen, they finally get all the way to Ireland. And while they're gone, they found out that their clan rival has taken over their city and all the other clans, and so the book is called Stolen, the Stolen Legacy of Ireland. And so at that point, all of the characters that I've collected through the novellas and the books, 21 characters, which is huge. And all 21 characters have to have their character arc. They all have to have their angst. They all have to be able to, when they find their big moment, that my reader would jump up and down and cheer for them because I connect the the characters and bring them so much to life for my readers. And then my book 4, which is completely drafted by my thorough outlines that I have learned to do. I still have to write it, but it is thoroughly drafted, and it's the ending that ends a series. That's the ending that you expect to end a series.
One last question I'll end on is what advice would you give to someone who has a story that they want to share, but they are afraid and a little nervous to tell it?
Yeah, so with my violin students, my music students, when they're nervous to perform in front of an audience on a stage, or they mess up on a phrase and they cry, I tell them that that mistake or that nervousness, that's not fear. That's actually, I love to see it because that's them showing me how much they care, how much they are passionate about it, how much that violin or writing or something is resonating with them. And so I think it is a gift. I think it's a wonderful gift that they have. So it's not pressure, and and they need to be able to embrace it and know that that fear of being able to take that first step to write something or show their work, that just means that they care so deeply about it, and that's a beautiful thing. Nothing to be afraid of.
Well, Bridget, I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast today to share your story and to share your book and everything. For people that are interested in reading the book, where can they go to learn more about your book, and where can they go to follow you on the socials as well to keep up with what you have going on in the future, as well as to continue following to learn more about your story?
Yeah, so everything is at Brigid Kennedy Books. And if you go to my personal website, brigidkennedybooks.com, you can find all that you need to in the world of our Legend and Seekers. That's why I call my fan club. And I do have links to purchase the books, and those links take you directly to Amazon, Kindle, Kindle Limited, iPod or iPad, and then Barnes and Noble, Balboa Press. I also, since I am a professional musician, when I did my audiobook, I wrote my own soundtrack and theme music, which is fantastic. So check out the audiobook, which you could get onto my website, and all my socials, TikTok, everything is Brigid Kennedy Books. But I do want to urge your listeners to go to my YouTube channel, Brigid Kennedy Books, because I'm doing a fantastic episode series. And every single week, I release a new episode, and I'm actually reading chapters from my book in order of my book. I'm going to read the entire book for you. And I go behind the scenes of every chapter, every sentence, why that sentence is so critical. I give you the seeds, I give you the Easter eggs that you can expect later on. I even show the real family pictures of my treasure hunting family, the wedding photos of my great grandfather Robert and Eudocia, the real photos of the cat and Robbie Kennedy, and I really share and give all the nitty gritty, the passion, the messy parts behind the scenes of the book. It's a fantastic journey, and I encourage all of your listeners to come and join me on that journey.
And I will put links to everything in the description box below. Her website, all of her social links will be in the description, in the show notes. So feel free to go check those out. You can also find the podcast on you can follow me on there as well. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at southern.reads, and you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And all my links to all my socials and where you can listen to the podcast is through my website, noahspodcast.com. There you'll find so much more about all the podcasts that I do, updates about what's coming on, podcasts I've been on. There's a whole bunch of stuff over there, so feel free to go check that out. Uh, If you've liked this episode and you'd like to hear more in the future, feel free to subscribe so you get notified of when those new episodes come out. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to today's episode. Hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I will catch you all in the next episode of Southern Reads.